Hello and welcome to Third Thursday. I'll give it just another minute to let those log in and we'll get started. Okay, so we are just after the 4 o'clock hour. Today is Thursday, December 21st, 2023. Thank you so much for joining us for Third Thursday with GBLA. Today's presentation is going to be a general services overview. We'll go over the different programs that we offer, the eligibility for those, and then there'll be time for questions and answers towards the end. All participants are muted as they come into the webinar and your cameras are off. There will be several options towards the end for Q&A. You can either type in the Q&A chat box, you could type directly into the chat itself, or you can use the feature to raise your hand. So we'll get those. Typically, this presentation lasts about 35 to 40 minutes. There's a lot of information to share, but we'll go through it as quickly as we can. And again, we'll have questions and answers towards the end. My name is Cassie Mulliken. I am the Marketing and Communications Coordinator with Greater Bakersfield Legal Assistance, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today. So first and foremost, I must start with our disclaimer. I am not an attorney, and the information I'm providing today is strictly for informational purposes only. Readers or participants in this webinar, if you should take any action based on the information provided to you today, please, we recommend that you meet with an attorney to obtain legal advice with respect to that particular legal matter. And just do note that the information provided today does not constitute an attorney-client relationship of any kind, and all liability with respect to actions taken or not taken based on the information provided are hereby expressly disclaimed. The information is also provided as is, so there's no representations that they are made that the information is error-free. I do tend to stay pretty on top of updating our programs. There are a couple updates I'll share with you towards as we get to those particular programs, but for the most part, we're up to date to this point forward. Quick information about who GBLA is. So we have been in Kern County since 1968. And since then, we've helped thousands of low-income individuals, families with children, seniors, and the community at large with basic legal needs and a variety of different services. So we assist in areas of housing and homelessness prevention, domestic violence, guardianship, children and family services, access to health and public benefits, consumer law, and other areas previously unattainable without the payment of high fees and costs. So many issues that we address and provide assistance for involve helping vulnerable populations with access to basic necessities of life, such as healthcare, safe housing, education, and food. Other services are aimed at preventing homelessness, reducing domestic violence, including protecting children from further exposure, fostering stability of care for children, and ensuring that our elderly are living with dignity and respect in an environment free from abuse and neglect. So we are a 50c3 nonprofit organization, and we offer free legal services and a variety of civil matters to eligible low-income persons residing in Kern County. Now, while not all of our programs are income restrictive, low income and seniors over the age of 60 are given the highest priority. Our philosophies are deeply rooted in anti-poverty programs, and we represent those who are unable or too afraid to speak for themselves, either because of racial, economic, social, or legal barriers, and consequently they become mere statistics in the social and economic research data. And so that's how we began, and that's what we strive to go for. So our mission is to promote social change and justice by providing high quality legal services to the low income community. Eligibility and access. So in order to be eligible for our services, all individuals must reside in Kern County, meet income and asset guidelines. Again, not all programs are income restrictive. But we'll go over those as we go into each of them. And they have to present a legal problem within GBLA court areas of practice. Services are initially accessed by telephone. We are open Monday through Friday from 8:30 to noon and from 1 to 5 p.m. We are closed all major holidays and any court calendar holidays. Residents of Kern County should call 661-325-5943 to access. We also take walk-ins. So if a client would like to walk into our offices to apply for services, we are located at 615 California Avenue. Our staff will then screen matter for eligibility and then make appropriate referrals as necessary. And this can all be done over the phone. You don't have to come into our offices for the screening. And then the initial consultation can be done over the phone as well. Eligible clients that have more complex legal matters are then referred to a staff attorney or a hearing paralegal for further assistance and or representation. The units that we cover are children and families, civil rights, health and public benefits, housing and homelessness prevention, senior care and long-term care advocacy. We have our volunteer attorney program of Kern County, and then other services for educational purposes. Under our children and families unit, we cover the guardianship caregiver project, the domestic violence reduction project, and the education law. Now, our guardianship caregiver project is to assist caregivers obtain guardianship of a child 5 years of age or younger and their siblings. This can be at age 0 to 5, and yes, age 0. If you know an individual who happens to be pregnant and you know that that child is going to be placed into care at the time of birth, you can actually file for guardianship as early as the age of 0. But what we essentially do is the purpose of this program is to prevent further exposure to domestic violence and other situations like neglect and abuse. Advocates represent prospective guardians by preparing and filing guardianship petitions, responding to any objections that occur, representing the client or clients in mediation and or in the guardianship hearings themselves, and then preparing the post-hearing letters and notifications. So guardianship is essentially when a court has ordered someone other than a parent to have custody of the child, manage the child's property, or both. And the responsibilities for a guardian are the same as it would be for a parent. You're responsible for providing food, clothing, and shelter for the child, the safety and protection, the physical and emotional growth, the medical and dental care, and any education and any special needs required. Now, with guardianships, you can apply for access to health and public benefits for the children once you've been awarded that guardianship. There have been times individuals have applied for public benefits while going through the process, and that's one of the things that we help assist with as well. This program is a special program for us, and it is one of our first 5 of Kern programs. Now, there's no income eligibility for this particular program. The only eligibility criteria is that at least one of the children that you're seeking a guardianship for is between the ages of 0 and 5. So if there's a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old, we will help with guardianship for both of them, but you qualify based on the fact that one child's under the age of 5. If it was an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old, now we do at times sometimes evaluate on a case by case, and there have been times that we have another program that's been able to help assist with guardianship of older children, but this one in particular, the eligibility for this is ages 0 to 5. And then with that, another question that comes up very frequently is how to obtain documentation for the child, birth certificates, medical records, and so forth. Once you have the guardianship, you have access to all that information. And when we provide services to our clientele, we do help them obtain those documentations as well. So again, I mentioned that at least one child must be 5 or younger. And then the GBLA services are all of that we discussed a moment. And then one other thing that we do that all of our programs actually do is we do work interconnected within our offices. So when we have a client come in for any of our specific programs, we will connect them to other programs as needed. So maybe they need access to health and public benefits. Maybe they're having a housing related issue. And so we'll try to navigate them to the proper person, the proper unit here. But sometimes there's other community services that we can connect them to. So we stay and work collaboratively with other social service agencies to help provide our clientele with information. We provide information about vaccination clinics. We provide information about outreach services, back to school events, where they can obtain food boxes and so forth. So there's a whole lot of interconnectivity that we work with internally and with our outside partners. Up next, under our children and families, is our domestic violence reduction project. This project provides legal assistance in order to protect children from further exposure to domestic violence. And the whole purpose of this is to help individuals with the filing of legal protection services. Commonly, they're called restraining orders, but the legal term is legal protection. And then this may include custody orders. So while we typically don't handle family law cases, we will assist individuals with custody orders if it's directly related to a domestic violence situation. Eligibility for this, again, there's no eligibility in terms of income, but you must be a victim of domestic violence, dating violence, stalking, and sexual assault. Now, we do give highest priority to those that have children ages 0 to 5, but again, everything's evaluated on a case-by-case basis. And we do have other programs to help and assist in domestic violence situations when that criteria is not met. Now, with this particular program, we provide full representation to our clients. So everything from filing the actual papers with the courts, serving the other party, going to mediation, going to the court dates, going to the trial, serving the papers. We help with everything from start to finish. And then in addition to that, again, we refer to additional services as needed to help with the protection of our clients and children. Now, this is one of our a few programs that we're able to assist immigrant victims. And so the purpose of our immigrant victims portion of the Domestic Violence Reduction Project is to help promote social justice and impact advocacy for the immigrant community. And so what we do with that is not only to provide full services for domestic violence restraining orders, but then we also help assist them with either the VAWA, which is the Violence Against Women's Act self-petition. We might help them with their U visa petition, petitions to lawful permanent residency. We do a lot of advocacy with law enforcement on how to deal with immigrant victims, assisting them through the public benefits application, and then again, referral to additional services as needed. Finally, under our children and families, we have our Education Law Project. The Education Law Project purpose is to ensure that every child has a fair access to an education to help them learn, grow, and prosper. Eligibility for this are students in the Kern County area. And we help with services related to school discipline, truancy, bullying, discrimination, special education, and other issues. At the end of the day, we advocate to ensure that all children have a safe place to go to school, that they're treated equally and without bias and without discrimination. And we have historically worked with other legal agencies and brought forth suits against school systems in Kern County that have been found to be partaking in discriminatory practices. So if you have any issues related to children and their education, please feel free to reach out and notify us of that so we can do our due diligence. Up next is our Civil Rights Unit, and under this we have what's called our Fair Housing Law Project. Now, the Fair Housing Law Project specializes in housing discrimination. The objective is to provide outreach and education services and outreach activities in order to increase awareness about fair housing laws to the community, as well as provide an easy to access intake and complaint system, and to reduce the instances of housing discrimination and eliminate systemic barriers to fair housing in Bakersfield and Kern County as a whole. So we do a lot of investigating claims of housing discrimination, provide enforcement services, presentations to the community in regards to what fair housing is. And then there are times that sometimes we're not able, if it's something that needs to be elevated to a higher authority, then we'll do that. So sometimes we refer cases directly to the Department of Housing and Urban Development or to California Civil Rights Department. Now, with fair housing, there are protected categories of individuals. If you fall within these protected categories, you can actually, if you're potentially discriminated against because of that, that's where the Fair Housing Law Project comes in. Most people are pretty familiar with the federal laws. So you can't be discriminated against because of your race or your color, your national origin, religion, sex, including sexual harassment, sexual orientation or gender identification, a disability, or familiar status. But California actually has additional laws to protect individuals, and those include the categories of marital status, including domestic partnerships, ancestry, age. We typically look at age discrimination as individuals that are 40 and older, but this covers individuals of all ages. So like an apartment complex can't say that no kids are allowed on a Friday night, right? That would be an active age discrimination case. Arbitrary characteristics. Arbitrary characteristics are your physical and or personal traits. So they can't tell you, oh, I'm sorry, we don't rent to people with purple hair and that are obnoxiously loud, right? Your physical trait is your purple hair, and your personal trait is how you speak and how your tone inflection is. So they can't discriminate against you because of your personal or physical traits. Sexual orientation, again, this covers sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. A source of income, as long as it is a legal, confirmable, and regular source of income, that must be included in the in your source of income in terms of your income limits when you're applying, whether that's for renting or buying. And this includes housing vouchers. Housing vouchers have to be included as a source of income. Your medical condition, whether you had that medical condition before or after, and then we covered gender identity and expression with sexual orientation. Just a little bit more with fair housing, there are specific prohibited conduct that landlords cannot engage in when it comes to housing discrimination. And this is not just landlords. This is mortgage brokers, mortgage companies. This is the lending office. This is the real estate agency. This is everything and every stage and every phase that you can go through when it comes to obtaining housing for yourself. So there's certain behaviors that that inhibit individuals, such as false or misleading information. So they can't post, for example, no Section 8 allowed. That would be a source of income form of discrimination. They can't have different terms and conditions and policies and rules. I mentioned the children, for example. They can't say no children on Friday nights at the pool. They can't say, oh, I'm sorry, we only take married people, or they can't say we only take single people, right? They can't have different rules or conditions. They can't harass you because you're a member of a protected class, or if you have company against a protected class. Retaliation, steering. They can't steer you to a particular neighborhood. And there's a whole lot more. We have an entire presentation just on fair housing that we'll cover in April. But this just kind of gives a little bit of a surface scratch. And then sex discrimination is a big one in housing as well, too. So there's 3 types. You have your generic sex discrimination, which is just kind of your creating hostile environments, having the different terms and conditions and policies and rules for individuals and so forth. Then you have what you call your quid pro quo or hostile environment. Quid pro quo is Latin for this or that. So your landlord can't tell you, oh, if you go on a date with me, I'll cut your rent in half, right? You give me something, I'll give you something. Or even a hostile environment. Maybe you're walking from your car to your door and you're getting catcalled, or you're being pursued by, and that could be anybody from your neighbor all the way up to the owner, the landlord, the maintenance individuals, any contractors they bring onto the property to do work. You should be free from being in a hostile environment. And then there are special protections for victims of domestic violence. So while victims of domestic violence don't fall under the Fair Housing Act, there are other special protections for them. And we do cover that in fair housing because they have a right to be free from choice of housing because of their situation. And then I just want to just quote here, when it comes to prohibited conduct, this starts at the top and works its way all the way down. So the owner of the property, the owner of the house, the apartment, the rental agency, whatever it is, the person that's listed as the owner, or the company, if it's a corporation, they're responsible for ensuring that all of their employees, all the way down to their contracted individuals they bring on for work, understand what fair housing is and what prohibited conduct is. And they are ultimately the ones responsible should you experience discrimination in your housing environment. And then two others I want to touch just very briefly before we move on is what's called reasonable accommodations and modifications. Reasonable accommodations are for people with physical or mental disabilities where landlords are required to make necessary accommodations to help assist them with their housing needs, as long as it doesn't create any type of barrier or financial hardship to the landlord. This could be something as simple as maybe it's an individual that receives Social Security income and they don't get paid until the third of the month, or the third, and rent's due on the third, but maybe they need an extra day or two to be able to go to the bank, get the money order, and then pay rent. A reasonable accommodation request would be, can I please pay my rent on the 5th of the month without incurring any late penalties? There could be other things like having a reserved parking spot for individuals that are handicapped. It could be moving your mailbox. There's different things. This also covers service animals and emotional support animals. They're commonly called emotional support, but they're actually classified as assistance animals. So there's actually laws around that as well. That's also another presentation that we'll cover in April. And then reasonable modifications are modifications made to the home for the purpose of the disabled individual being able to have ease of access. And landlords are required to allow those modifications, again, as long as there's no undue burden or financial hardship on the landlord. So let's just say, for example, that you become disabled and are wheelchair bound and live in an upstairs apartment. You can ask the accommodation of your landlord to be moved to a downstairs apartment. Now, an undue hardship or financial barrier or financial hardship to them would be asking another tenant to move out of the downstairs apartment to move you in. But if the apartment was to open up downstairs, that would be a reasonable accommodation request they're able to grant by moving you into it without incurring any additional fees and so forth. Reasonable modifications are things like installing grab bars, widening the door frames, going from a turn lever to a door, or a turn knob to a door level. Those are modifications. Typically, tenants are responsible for paying and making those modifications, but they do have to notify their landlord that they're doing so. And the only exception to that is if they're in any type of government funded housing, in which case government funded housing typically has resources for those modifications. And oftentimes individuals will find that if they make a request for a modification to the home, let's say they want to put grab bars in the shower, a lot of times the landlords will actually send the maintenance crew in themselves to try to prevent any damage that might occur. But it is ultimately the responsibility of the tenant to make those modifications. And they have to request those from the landlord. They can't just make them. Next, we're going to talk about our Health and Public Benefits Unit. Under this, we have our Current Health Consumer Center and Public Benefits. Our Current Health Consumer Center provides individual assistance to help consumers navigate the healthcare system and obtain the coverage and services that they need. Eligibility for this is low income in Kern County. Oh, and I am so sorry I didn't cover the fair housing. Fair housing has no income eligibility. You just have to be a Kern County resident. Sometimes we take the cases in representation when it comes to landlord tenant matters. And sometimes just having somebody giving them information they need to assert their fair housing rights is enough. But we also take complaints. So when people call in on a complaint, we actively investigate that and then attend to that as needed. Sorry about that. Let's go back to the Current Health Consumer Center now. With the Current Health Consumer Center, eligibility for this program is they must be a Kern County resident and they have to be low income. So what we do is a lot of community education around healthcare law and benefits. So for example, you might have recently heard a lot of information about Medi-Cal renewals. There's multiple agencies that have helped help individuals obtain access to healthcare. We've been promoting this for months and months and months now, reminding people that, Medi-Cal renewals are coming back out. Make sure you get that in. But one of the new ones that GBLA specifically has been trying to promote is the fact that effective January 1st, 2024, all individuals that qualify for Medi-Cal will now have access to what's called full scope Medi-Cal services. So previously an individual might have went to the emergency room and needed to apply for emergency assistance, and we're given a partial scope of services. So while they had insurance to cover their emergency need, they didn't have it for additional preventative care. Well, now all individuals over the age of 18 will now they qualify for Medi-Cal services. They will receive full scope medical services regardless of immigration status. And that will cover all care. So emergency services, preventative services, prenatal services, all of that will now be full scope services as of January 1. And it's very important now. We're ending near the end of the month. We're already at December 21st. But we've been promoting for months now, letting people know that while these Medi-Cal renewals were coming up, so also was the time to apply for Medi-Cal. And so it's for individuals that are currently applying for full scope Medi-Cal services, the sooner they get their applications in, the better for them, so that there's enough time to process that, and then effective January when they'll have services. So we do a lot of community education. In addition to that, we help not just with obtaining healthcare coverage, but also all of the things that might go wrong with that healthcare coverage, including appealing eligibility denials. Sometimes those denials come through for signatures missing, forms not being filled out. Maybe their income that they reported was happened to be higher 1 month, but it was kind of a once a year kind of thing where they worked a little bit of overtime in that particular month that doesn't truly show what their true income is. So sometimes they need to appeal those denials, and we help assist with that. Maybe they need to file a complaint or a grievance with the health plan, the doctor, or the hospital, or challenge services. We help assist with those types of cases. Billing and affordability issues, we do help step in with those as well too. And then of course, we also help individuals that are having difficulty accessing services because of language barriers, disability, geographic location, or appointment wait times. So we work again very closely with other social service agencies to ensure they have need, and we advocate for resources in all areas of Kern County, particularly our rural communities. We know that our rural communities, that's the most difficult areas to access healthcare, particularly emergency services. And so we do a lot of advocacy and education around that to provide services to those to individuals living in those communities. On the other side of this unit is what we call our public benefits unit. And so what we do is we help to ensure that low-income families have sufficient resources to meet basic necessities of life. Again, they have to be a Kern County resident, and they must be low income. So not only do we help apply for public benefits as needed, I mentioned earlier with our guardianship project, for example, when individuals are seeking guardianship of children, we help assist them with the application to health and public benefits if it's needed. So in addition to applying for services, we also assist with denials, reductions, terminations, and overpayments. We provide counsel and advice on across the board on public benefits. We help file the appeal forms. Sometimes it's a matter of obtaining health and public benefit records. And then if it ever is going to an actual hearing, we do provide full representation services to clients under our health and public benefits unit. Up next is our housing and homelessness prevention programs. Under this unit, we have what's called Homeless Court, the Landlord Tenant Assistance Center, Sergeant Shriver Housing Project, and our Mobile Home Advocacy Project. Homeless Court. Homeless Court is a program. It is typically referral based. It's very rare that we help individuals that already have a case manager with another social service agency. So it's typically referral based. But if you are a social service agency that works with homeless individuals, what you would do is you could reach out to me, and I'll provide my information towards the end. If you haven't done so already, you would need to attend one of our training sessions. We tend to host these once a quarter, or as requested if we have enough individuals requesting. We know sometimes individuals that receive the training are no longer with an agency, and other individuals don't know how the referral system works. So we do provide that. So what we do is we remove barriers to HUD eligible homeless persons by giving them an opportunity to obtain and maintain permanent housing and income. And we typically do this by working with the courts when it comes to misdemeanor or traffic associated fines. So eligibility for this program, they have to be homeless under HUD's definition. Any referral that we receive has to be fees that were within the county of Kern. So we cannot help assist with fees outside of Kern County. That has to be made by the participant's case manager. Typically, we'll work with our social service providers who work with individuals, and most the ones that come to mind kind of offhand are like Flood Ministries, Clinica Sierra Vista, other places like that. They have case managers that work with individuals through the process. So they must successfully have completed or participated in a recovery program, so they cannot currently be under the use of substances. Now we only waive those fees that arise from misdemeanor and traffic cases, so we don't cover, old child support or spousal support, divorce payments, or other fines associated with other criminal activities. And they cannot have any current pending criminal cases while participating. So they have to make sure they have no open cases with the courts. And then just remember that participants can only participate in homeless court once in a lifetime. So once we've helped assist an individual remove misdemeanor or fees arising from misdemeanor or traffic cases, we can't assist them a second time. Our Landlord Tenant Assistance Center. Landlord Tenant Assistance Center helps assist low-income tenants and landlords with disputes pre-eviction. So what we do is we help underrepresented parties understand and prepare for court, or whenever possible, help landlords and tenants reach out-of-court settlements. Landlord Tenant Assistance Center is located and is a partnership with the Kern County Superior Court. It's located on the 3rd floor in the Law Library at the 1415 Truxtun Avenue location. Eligibility for this is case by case, so it's not income based, but we have to determine whether or not we can help you in the realm of that we're able to assist you with. And then secondly, if it's an issue that we can assist you with within the time frame. Time frame is a big one. I'm going to reiterate what that means here shortly. But what we do is we provide simple legal counsel and advice for those that are representing themselves. Sometimes they need assistance with mediation services, so we'll help represent them and prepare them for mediation. Educational workshops, such as what we're doing right now. We also do a resident rights presentation. I mentioned earlier fair housing. We do a lot of educational workshops around different services that we offer. Provide full case management through the course of the case, and then of course referrals as necessary. Now, once an individual moves to the actual eviction phase, that's when we would refer them over to the Sergeant Schreiber Housing Projects. So Sergeant Schreiber Housing Project works to prevent homelessness by assisting low-income individuals with what's called unlawful detainer, commonly known as eviction. What we do is we assist tenants in the actual lawsuit when the landlord's being represented by another attorney. So this is full representation. So not only do they receive the legal counsel and advice, but we negotiate at the mandatory settlement conference or provide representation in trial and referrals to agencies. Now, this is where I want to reiterate that time is of the essence. If an individual receives a notice from their landlord on a Monday and their court date is set for the following Monday, they cannot call us on Friday for assistance because we're not going to be able to provide that assistance. We need at least 48 hours to be able to assist an individual. Typically, there is a 5-day period that happens. So once that, whether it's a notice to vacate, a 30-day notice to cure, whatever it is, if you get a notice from your landlord, it's important to reach out to us immediately because we need at least 48 business hours to, 1, determine are you eligible for services, 2, is it an area with which we can assist you in, or do we need to make a referral to another agency? And 3, can we get the paperwork turned back into the courts in time? Because remember, clients only have 5 days to respond to that notice. And so they need to give us enough time to prepare the information. So if they get a notice on Monday, they better call us on Monday. They can call us on Tuesday. They can call us on Wednesday. Very rarely will we take the case if they call us on a Thursday or Friday when court's on Monday. So 48 business hours is essential. As soon as they get that notice, they have to notify us, call us to apply for assistance. So if you are a social service provider on the webinar today, I can't stress that enough, the importance of having you share that information with your potential clientele. And then our last one under housing and homelessness prevention is our mobile home advocacy project. The purpose of this project is to increase awareness of the rights of mobile home residents to prevent mobile home residents from becoming homeless. There are two very different types of residents in mobile home parks. There are owners who own the mobile home and rent the space for management, and then there are tenants that rent the space and the mobile home for management. Tenants that rent the space and the mobile home are covered under regular tenant protection laws. But owners, there are other specific laws and certain processes that they have to follow because of the ownership. So what we do with this program is education, counsel and advice, and then help with pre-eviction and eviction disputes. Now, I will note here, this program is not going to be called Mobile Home Advocacy Project specifically anymore for the first of the year, but it is still going to remain a program within our housing and homelessness prevention program. Senior law and long-term care advocacy. Under this unit, we cover the Grandparent Guardianship Project, the Kern County Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, and the Seniors Law Center. The Grandparent Guardianship Project is the same services that we provide in the Caregiver Project, but the eligibility requirements are a little bit different. So we assist grandparents or other close relatives ages 55 years of age or older to obtain guardianship of children 18 years or younger if they're currently residing with you. Same services we provided the first time: preparing and filing for the hearings, responding to objections, mediation and guardianship hearings, and then preparing post-hearing letters and orders. Now, while the Caregiver Project and the Grandparent Project are very specific on eligibility when it comes to the age of the children and or the age of the caregiver, I still encourage individuals to reach out to us if they need assistance with guardianship, because sometimes we're able to provide just the legal counsel and advice, but everything's evaluated on case by case. So no promises. Everybody must call to apply for assistance. Next up is what we call our Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program. We are the only long-term care ombudsman program in Kern County, and we provide oversight of care for patients living in long-term care facilities. So we're an advocate of the residents and their families to enhance their quality of life. And this covers all facilities such as skilled nursing facilities, residential care, and assisted living. We provide investigation and resolution of complaints. We receive abuse investigations and report to the appropriate authorities. We do work very closely with Adult Protective Services and Aging Adult Services as well, and other agencies that help assist with the care for patients. We do witness advanced healthcare directives. We provide a lot of community education, and essentially we maintain a regular presence at those facilities. And the purpose of that regular presence is to make sure that the staff of those facilities are aware that they are there to treat the residents with the care and the dignity and the respect that they deserve, and to essentially let them know that we're watching and we're going to make sure that those residents are treated fairly and properly. Our Seniors Law Center. So with our Seniors Law Center, we assist individuals that are 60 years of age and older, with an emphasis on those in the greatest economic and social need. So while this is not income restrictive, highest priority does go to low-income individuals. We cover all of the programs we've already discussed and even more. So we do power of attorneys, revocation of power of attorneys, advanced healthcare directives. We're not currently doing living wills and trusts. We do get that question quite commonly. And we hope that one day we'll be able to, but right now we typically refer out, and I'll talk about this in a moment, to volunteer attorneys for those services. But we do other things. We do a lot of consumer education, fraudulent cases. We have handled everything from solar panel contracts to suspected financial fraud from banking institutions, from online websites. We've all heard about the scamgram schemes that happen. We all get those text messages that say, your package we tried to deliver your package, but it was undeliverable. Please click this to find out, right? Or they call and they say, I'm calling from Social Security office. Please confirm your Social Security number. So we do a lot of education, just informing our elderly individuals in Kern County that, these are the things to look out for so that you are not caught up in some kind of consumer fraud situation. Our volunteer attorney program is a very special program for us. So what we do is we involve private attorneys and others in the delivery of pro bono which means free, legal information assistance to benefit indigent and low-income clients and or the client community. So oftentimes we will get calls about cases that we don't cover under our areas of expertise. And this is where we might refer to one of our pro bono private attorneys. So what they do is they accept the case referral. They may co-counsel with a GBLA attorney. It might be something as assisting with legal research and writing, making court appearances, and oftentimes they'll do community workshops in their area of expertise. So we've had in the past individuals that actually focus, let's talk about living wills and trusts again. We have had private attorneys provide workshops regarding living wills and trusts before. So the volunteer attorney program, we will typically turn to them when we can't. I mentioned the guardianship earlier. So we have the 2 guardianship programs. So what about those that don't quite fall into either one of those categories? We will try to attempt to connect them to a volunteer attorney. It's not always possible. We do the best that we can. And that's another reason why all of our programs, so not just housing, all of our programs require a 48-hour turnaround to determine if we can even, if they meet eligibility requirements, are we able to assist them based on the capacity we have here? Capacity meaning, do we have an attorney in that particular area of practice? And then if we don't, then we would refer them to a private attorney and we attempt to locate a pro bono attorney before we tell them that we can assist them. So we tried the best we can to service as many individuals as we can here in Kern County. Other services, our Access to Justice Rural Project and our Consumer Law are both education projects. Essentially what these do is we want to ensure that individuals in rural areas of Kern County are aware of our services, who we are, how they can reach us, and to let them know that they don't have to come to Bakersfield to receive services. They can call our offices and oftentimes we'll go to them to help assist them with their casework. And then consumer law is a lot about educating low-income consumers on consumer law, help them retain income and assets to help meet basic needs, and then just essentially ensure that fair and just business practices are occurring for all individuals. So I kind of covered this in the beginning. I'll cover it very briefly again. You must apply for assistance. So we can't take every single case. Please let your clients know that you work with, that they have to call to apply. There's no guarantees that we can assist them. The best way to reach us is to call us at our number at 325-5943. We do accept walk-in services as well. They must have an issue within our priority areas. They have to live within Kern County. They have to be a U.S. citizen or have immigration status unless they qualify for the Immigrant Victim Services under domestic violence. And then typically be low income, but there are some exceptions I discussed earlier. Again, 8:30 to 12 and 1 to 5, Monday through Friday. We are closed for all major court holidays, and we do not have a message system. There are numbers to our fair housing line that typically individuals will receive if they call the city or the county or another agency. They might have a direct line to the fair housing, but just note that message system is for the Fair Housing Law Project. So it might take even longer to receive a call back from them because we have to prioritize fair housing cases on that line. It doesn't mean that if you leave a message, we won't get back to you. It'll just take longer. So it's just better to call our 325-5943 or walk into our offices to apply. Remember for clients to limit the information to the issue at hand. We're going to do an eligibility screening, and this includes sensitive questions. We're going to ask about race, income, disability, resources, banking services, property value, immigration status. Now, while we ask these questions, they are confidential. Now, while not all of our programs are income-based, we still ask all of these questions to best determine the assistance that we need to provide them to make sure that they have whole quality care. And then if eligible, they'll get a call back within 48 business hours. More information can be found on our website at www.gbla. I have included my email on the screen. If you are a social service agency provider and you would like a presentation for your staff or for your clientele about any of our services, I can do one similar to what we did now on a general services, or we can go more in depth and we can cover any of our other programs and dive in a little deeper. Feel free to send an email to me and reach out for that. We post a lot of our consumer education on our Facebook and Instagram, as well as sharing community resources. And all of our webinars and workshops are recorded and posted to our YouTube channel, which you can access at any time. So that is the end of my presentation. Do we have any questions at this time? So I'm checking the Q&A, I am checking the chat, and I do not see any hands raised. So with that, I'm going to say thank you so much for attending with us today. I hope you found the information beneficial, and I look forward to seeing you again in January for Third Thursday with GBLA. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful holiday season. Happy New Year.